Hey friends, welcome back to the 1211 podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Tabitha.
And I'm Jennifer, and we are so very glad that you're here with us today.
The foundation of 1211 podcast is Revelation 12:11, which says, "They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony."
Every time we tell our story, what Jesus has done in our lives, it brings freedom. It not only helps us walk in that freedom, but it creates space for others to step into it too. That's what we're here for.
And today, we're excited to introduce someone who knows firsthand what that transformation looks like. Our guest today is the beautiful Carrington Beard. Welcome to the 1211 podcast.
Hello. Carrington, I can't wait for our listeners to hear your story. I think a lot of people will relate to what you have to say today. And I'm super proud, as your mom, that you've chosen to share from this place of vulnerability and authenticity. Before we dive into your story, we're going to hit you with a quick round of rapid-fire questions. No overthinking.
Oh, no.
Just the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
I guess.
All right.
All right, here we go. If you could instantly master any skill or hobby, what would it be?
Probably sewing.
I know someone that could help you with that.
Yeah, that would not go well.
And it's not me, by the way. It is her sister. Her sister could teach her a thing or two about that. I definitely could not teach her anything about that. What's your go-to comfort food?
Potatoes.
Any kind of potato?
Any form.
Which is interesting because when I was pregnant with Carrington, guess what I craved? Baked potatoes. I ate a baked potato almost every day of my pregnancy with her, and she loves a potato.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love potatoes too. What is your favorite worship song right now?
I think Who Else by Gateway Music. I think that's who sings it.
Yeah, that's
Super good.
What about a dream vacation spot? If you could travel anywhere right now, where would you want to go?
Probably Greece or Italy.
Yeah, I want to make a Europe trip eventually.
Yeah.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs. Cats are evil.
Yeah, you've just lost us some listeners. The people out there that love our cat lovers, they're like, never again will we listen to that podcast. No, just
They're weirdos if they like cats.
keeping it real. One word that your friends would use to describe you.
I think loyal.
That's awesome. One piece of advice that you live by.
Oh, goodness. Think just trying to live in the moment and not worry too much about what's to come.
Need that.
Me too.
Who is someone who has been a spiritual role model or mentor in your life?
Well, there's been lots. I think right now Wendy Long would be probably at the top of the list.
And why is that?
Well, she's my counselor, but also she's just a really good friend and listens really well and withholds judgment, and I appreciate that.
Those are good qualities.
Yeah. Your favorite way to spend a Saturday?
Well, probably at Walnut Hill at some point in the day. And then with my dog and Jake. But I don't know of any activity. Don't really do a lot. So, yeah.
You like to just be, yeah. Something on your bucket list.
I want to go to the Kentucky Derby.
That's cool. I love that. Do you like horses?
I love it.
Always loved horses?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Amy does too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's transition a bit now. Carrington, an important part of your story is that you grew up knowing Jesus. But for a long time, your relationship with him was more about escaping hell than walking in intimacy with him. Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, so I was saved at 4, and I could tell you the parking spot at Estelnaz where I prayed and asked Jesus to save me, and I believe he did in that moment.
And explain why it was in a parking spot.
Well, we were on our way to church, and I was asking a bunch of questions about it, and then parked, and I was like, well, okay, let's do it then. So
as a family,
we did it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's right. Yes.
But I think a lot of it was fear-based instead of like longing to know Jesus and have like an intimate relationship with him. And so, like, growing up, I was just really afraid of hell and didn't even really understand, like, what hell was, but I just knew that it wasn't in God's presence and that I didn't ever want to experience that. And so, yeah, just for a lot of my growing up, really until high school, probably, a lot of my relationship with God was driven by just trying to not end up in hell one day.
Mm. So when we have a faith that's kind of rooted in performance, which I think is much, it's pretty common that happens for a lot of people. But when it's rooted in performance or escaping punishment, which is kind of what you're alluding to, or making sure you're checking all the boxes, completing the checklist, I think fear and anxiety become a part of who we are. So how did that tendency towards striving show up in your everyday life? Like, what did that look like? And how did it impact you as a child, a teenager, and as a young adult?
Yeah, I think striving for, like, acceptance or love in, like, every relationship was something that I felt like I had to work for. And that wasn't because of, like, my parents or, like, any relationship really I had, because I had authentic relationships with people. But I think in my mind, it was like you had to earn, like, love and acceptance. And so I think because of that, that causes anxiety, like you said. And so then for a long time, I struggled with anxiety that was really crippling. And part of the anxiety was, oh no, I hope I don't go to hell when I die. But then part of it was like, do people like me? Am I who I'm supposed to be? Does God love me? Am I enough for people? Do people want me around? And all those kinds of things that are really, I think, wrapped up in, like, worth and value that I struggled with a lot. Because I think because of all the striving, a lot of my worth and value was wrapped up in, like, the approval and acceptance of other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things that you said just then caught my attention about how you, like, it was your perception of I have to do all these things to be loved. It wasn't the reality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you weren't having anything to do. You didn't have to do anything to earn my love as your mother, or your dad's love, or your grandparents' love, and obviously you don't have to do anything to earn God's love. He loves us regardless. But that was your perception, not reality. So talk a little bit about even just trying to, how that perception that was rooted in something that wasn't true, how hard was it to then break that down, like that perceived need to do and perform and just strive?
Yeah, it was really hard, and I think it really took me until college. I had a class about, like, holiness theology, and that class talks a lot about how there's nothing we could ever do or work or strive hard enough for to, like, earn our spot in heaven, to earn God's love, to earn his acceptance, but that it's been a free gift that was given to us. And so that kind of totally transformed that for me, because I think I thought I had to try to be good enough, and I could never be good enough on my own. And so once I kind of figured out that it really was this willingness to just let God do the work in my life that he already wanted to do and not try to do it on my own, that I kind of experienced freedom from the constant, like, trying to be good enough and striving for acceptance and all of that.
That's good.
Yeah. Were there any moments where you felt like it just wasn't working, the striving, the grasping, any specific pivotal moments where this thinking impacted you significantly?
Yeah, I can think of a couple. One was when my grandfather passed away when I was 12 or 13.
Well, it'll be 10 years. Yeah, 10 years in July. So
13. And until that point, I tell people all the time, like, life was really easy. And because of that, one, I didn't really feel like I had a testimony growing up, because it was like, saved it for, both of my parents are still married, and like all of the things that like were part of lots of people's testimony just wasn't there. And so losing my grandfather was the first like broken thing that kind of had happened. And I think because my relationship with God wasn't really built on like his word and even like prayer and stuff, like I didn't really spend a lot of time with him. And so when I lost my grandfather, it caused a lot of like anger and confusion and kind of just like a distance from God. Like I just didn't really care, and didn't really care if I had anything to do with God, because I couldn't wrap my head around like, if God is good, why do bad things happen? And I think a lot of people ask that question every day. But I couldn't understand, like, how if he is good, why do bad things happen? And then another moment was I graduated high school early by a semester, so I was done in December, and I'm really thankful I was done with high school early, because COVID then hit and totally changed what high school looked like anyways. So I'm thankful for that. But kind of in those months before going to college, I felt very lonely. I wasn't really around anyone.
Yeah,
and it was the middle of a pandemic, and so anxiety then was very much a part of, I think, most of our experience, but it really amplified for me, and loneliness was something that was really scary for me, and I still struggle to like be alone, because I think sometimes when I'm alone, it feels like that's when the enemy like attacks the most. And so that was really true in that couple months. But in that season, God allowed me to meet a family that I was able to nanny for, and they trusted me to watch their 3-month-old, which is still crazy to me that at 18 they did that. But I'm really thankful for her, because if it wasn't for her and her family, I'm not sure that I would still be here, because I struggled a lot with like suicidal thoughts and things during that season. And so her life is, every time I'm around her, is a kind of promise from God that he will continue to provide, and in the seasons that feel the most lonely, that he is with us, and that he can even work through a 3-month-old to be just a piece of hope and a glimpse of heaven and him in our lives. So
very good. I think as you unpack your story and you talk about like this idea of trying to be good enough, and always, I think anytime that's our filter is like that we have to perform, we have to be good enough, it's impossible. It's impossible, because we can't be good enough, right? We're going to fall short. And so I think a lot of people can relate to that. The fear, the anxiety, the loneliness that comes when that's the lens through which we're trying to live our life, is holding ourselves to expectations that maybe we can't really achieve, but also thinking that our entire identity and worth is wrapped up in that.
mm-hmm.
Then we're always living disappointed, right? Because we're not good enough. And although we think we're not good enough by our measure, God doesn't look at us that way. He doesn't look at us and think of all the ways that we're falling short or the places that we're not good enough, because he sees us as created in his image. He sees the good that he created us for, and he wants to call that out in us. But at some point, and you kind of alluded to this already, that you had a class at Trevecca that has really was really transformative for you. But at some point in your journey, you kind of started experiencing freedom from some of this struggle that you've talked. And you just said too that you still have to kind of like, those places that brings out those fears in you. But this freedom of that comes not from religion, because that's really what you had grasped onto, right? Religion, not relationship. So what did that shift look like through this class that you took, through living life with Lily, the sweet baby that you were able to nanny, and how that brought life to you? But how did that shift look for you from religion to true relationship and trying to find freedom in that? And how did that happen? That shift happen?
Yeah, I think all throughout college really was kind of a journey of figuring out what it really looks like to have a relationship with God, instead of being wrapped up in like just legalism and like rules and checklists and do's and don'ts to try to like make sure I was meeting all the requirements. And in college, I think one of the things that helped the most, well, when I was going to school for ministry, so most of my classes were based on like theology and that kind of stuff, but also the people that I got to do life with at Trevecca, I think more than any class I ever had, really helped me realize that if we're able to have those kind of intimate relationships with each other, that those are reflections of what our relationship with Christ is supposed to be, and that people really are a gift from Him. And so, like, my friend Molly has really been a pivotal part of my journey of realizing, that there aren't a bunch of rules and just laws we have to keep just for the sake of, like, keeping rules and laws. And I think she really helped me because she grew up in a totally different theological tradition than I did. I was raised Nazarene and she was raised Baptist, and just those theologies are very different in a lot of ways. And she shared a lot with me about how growing up, the theology kind of that she was taught was very like legalistic and kind of more about like behavior modification than really like heart transformation. And even though that's not what I had grown up hearing taught, that's the way that I had understood.
Yeah.
And so hearing her work through that is really what has helped me realize that like that was what my struggle was just this wanting to have the behaviors that I was supposed to have while not really allowing God to like change and transform my heart. And so I think kind of that was a process through my entire time at Trevecca. And that holiness class I talked about wasn't until my last semester there. And so that was kind of, I think, the climax moment for me that was like, I can't do it on my own, and I can never be good enough just by myself. And so the striving really isn't even worth it because it's not getting me anywhere and it's not earning me God's love or more favor with Him or any of those things. And so I think that is what has caused me to experience real freedom. And there's a verse in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 that talks about God sanctifying us continually and entirely, and that it's a spirit, soul, and a body sanctification. And that, too, for me, was just a huge realization that it's not just about my soul getting to heaven one day, but that once I know Jesus, like heaven has broken into my midst, and it is here, and it's a reality right now. Oh, yeah. And that should cause me to live my life a lot differently than if I'm just waiting to one day make it to heaven to, I don't know, no longer have to deal with any hardship or pain or all of those things. So
It makes me think of a couple of questions that I hadn't thought of before right this second. So I want to ask you to unpack a couple of things. One of the things I think, because I have also struggled, Tabitha and I both shared here and other spaces with that tendency toward perfectionism, or like feeling like you have to be enough and add up and all. And one of the things that I think you have to fight when that is a struggle that you have is also it affects every relationship you have, because not only are you thinking they're putting that weight on you, but it's really easy to put that weight on others, to because you expect so much of yourself and you feel like you can't add up, like to put that same level of expectation or criticism on other people. And so then it hinders human relationships as well. Has that been the case for you? Or like, how has that moving from behavior modification in your own life, like, which is kind of like this legalism, works-based kind of mindset, to like this heart transformation, which is a grace mindset. How has that even not just impacted your relationship with Jesus, but your the way you minister, your relationship with other people, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's changed everything about me and the way that I relate to people. I think before, I was very judgmental of others and just things that people like struggle with and go through, and places people find themselves. And I think part of that was because life had been so easy for me, and so I just didn't understand like why you couldn't just will yourself to like get over it, kind of. And
move on.
I've realized now that like that's just not how it works, and that like I think people that are struggling with addiction or habits or any of those things that can be really controlling and consuming of your life, like most of them don't want that thing. So it's not that they're just choosing like the thing that they know is wrong or they shouldn't be doing, but you know, it has such a hold on you because of just like addiction and how all of that controls your life. And so I think it's caused me to be a lot more gracious toward other people, and to hear people close to me share about things that they've struggled with and addictions and habits and things like that that they've been able to overcome, but to hear like a real person share their story about whatever it is, like that I think has helped me the most. Because growing up, I wasn't really surrounded by that. And, like addiction wasn't really a part of people that I was around, and I wasn't really exposed to it. And so I think just because I was so naive to that, there was this judgment towards others of like, well, I just don't understand why you can't just stop.
Right.
And
because you're focused on behavior modification.
Yes.
You're like, just modify your behavior.
Yes.
It'll all be okay, right?
Yeah.
And you can't. It's right. It's behavior modification.
And then I think walking through that with really close friends and, you know, hearing them share, like, the struggle isn't something that I want, but I can't just, like, will myself to stop. And so getting to walk that journey with people and, you know, share that, like, Jesus has grace for you. And really, I think when we mess up again, if we know in our heart that, like, it's wrong and that the first reaction we have is to ask for his forgiveness, I think that's when God, like, has started to truly change and transform us. Not that we're never going to struggle again or whatever, but that when we do mess up and sin and struggle, like, if he's the first place we run to, that's when he's really started the work of, like, changing our heart instead of us just wanting to, like, change the thing that we do.
Yeah. I think you talked a little bit about moving away from a works-based or behavior modification model of Christianity, which is very popular, I think, very common, especially in our American culture. It's really common, I think. But when you look at Scripture, it talks about how we are saved by grace, which means it's a gift, right? It's a gift from God. It's not something we earn. But then it goes on to say by grace through faith. So our part is the faith part, right? The having the faith. But unpack, because there is a balance. It can't be a works-based salvation or sanctification, but Scripture also tells us faith without works is dead. So what's the balance of all that in your life so that you don't teeter and move back to where it's heavy on the works and not on the grace and faith?
Yeah, so I'm getting to teach the youth Sunday school at church for this month, and we're reading through Galatians, which is really all about like that struggle between the law and grace, and like once Jesus has come, what do all the rules and things mean for the people of God now that Jesus has satisfied, kind of all of those requirements. And one of the students Sunday, I have them like discuss in groups and then we talk together, but one of the high school boys on Sunday was talking about how really Jesus came because the Pharisees were so worried about behavior modification and what people were doing and their actions that nothing had transformed them. Like they hadn't really encountered Christ and allowed God to change their heart. And so I think we also talked about, though, that once God has changed your heart, all of those rules and laws really are followed because once you've met Jesus, those things are just naturally a part of who you are. And so I think the works thing is kind of like that. Like once you have encountered him, you can't help but help the poor and the broken and those that are without and the downcast and all of the people that, Christ has called us to. But I do think like works looks differently than a lot of the time we want it to look in the American church, that it's not about us and it's not about getting a platform or being elevated, but it's really about getting as low as you can get with people and walking real life journey with those that no one else is willing to journey with.
Good stuff.
That's beautiful. One of the ways I see, and I think we all see, God working in this particular generation is creating more opportunities where it is safe to be real and raw, to share how you are struggling. It's evident in the openness to counseling and therapy, whereas even 10 to 20 years ago, we tended to pretend things were okay. I go back to that Christian F word.
Yeah, fine.
We're fine.
Yeah.
And just pretend we're okay and never really address our struggles, sweep them under the rug, and then it becomes a stumbling block. What role has Christian counseling played in your life?
Yeah, so I started counseling probably a year and a half ago with Wendy.
You did some through college.
I did some through college, which was not a great experience, but we can talk about that another time. But really, the Christian counseling started with Wendy. And it's like totally changed and transformed my life. Because I think like God empowers his people to help one another, and I think that that's kind of the whole point of like the church and community and like why we have each other. And the gift that God has given Wendy to like see other people, and the gift that he gives counselors to be able to speak into people's lives, I think is just so beautiful, and that has blessed my life in so many ways. Things that I didn't even realize like were a struggle, or like fears that I have or things that like false realities that I had like painted in my brain. Christian counseling has helped like draw those out so that I can work through them instead of me just like pretending like it's normal that I'm always afraid that something bad's gonna happen, or that I'm fearful of like people dying and like all of that stuff. Like I've been able to work through with Wendy instead of just continuing to like try to push through and power through and just like accept it as normal that those things are like everyday struggles that I have. And so yeah, counseling has been amazing, and I think everyone should do it, because even if you think that you don't have anything to talk about, that's not true.
Right.
Because if you're a human, you have a life, and your life hasn't been perfect. And so yeah, I think everyone should, at least for a short time, go through some sort of Christian counseling.
And I think there's power. Like, I was just thinking about this morning, I sat and had coffee with someone, and just putting yourself in a space with people you trust, even if it's not professional counseling, but space where there's people that you trust that can spiritually mentor you and walk some things with you. Because even as I sat and talked this morning, and we really kind of started talking about her story and unpacking some of her story, I had aha moments in talking with her yesterday, as I sat and talked with our staff at church, like unpacking some things about my personality with them helped me to like, there was like some aha moments of some things that are tendencies in my life, and figuring out where that's rooted, like where did that start?
Yeah.
And recognizing that the root of the problem is much deeper than what I might have originally thought. So I think we all have to have people. I think counseling, yes, I say that often to people. I think I say that to couples that we talk to, like we probably all need counseling, because we're trying to navigate a world that's messy and loud and distracting and overwhelming, and we all are raised by people who are doing the same, who have their own set of stories and traumas and experience that then get poured into one generation after the next. And so I think that the beautiful thing about counseling is it's not like taboo, right? It's not like you're saying I'm an absolute wreck, I just need somebody to rescue me. But you kind of are recognizing like I want to work through, and I want to be the best version of myself that God's created me to be, that I can. So so you talked about how fear, anxiety, worry kind of were driving your life. They were in the driver's seat. Are there still moments where those feelings creep back in? And if so, how do you handle that? And then what are some of the specific, like if you could share a few strategies that you've learned through counseling that have changed how you respond, so that you take back the driver's seat from the fear and anxiety, where you take those thoughts captive. Can you share some of those things?
Yeah, there are definitely moments still where fear and anxiety can creep back in, and sometimes linger a little longer than I would like for them to. Sometimes even things as simple as like doing announcements at church, they like seem so simple, and it is simple, but sometimes my brain cannot get over the fact that like it doesn't feel simple. And so even sometimes things like that are so little can cause fear and anxiety. Some of the things that counseling has helped me be able to like overcome those things instead of it being like debilitating or not being able to like function and do it, is she kind of talks about your mind and your thoughts being like leaves in like a creek or like a stream, and that we don't have to always like pick up everything that's flowing down in our brain. So like sometimes when I have thoughts that I know like aren't from God or are destructive, I just even kind of imagine like the river or whatever, and like letting the thought like continue to like go, instead of like picking it up and like overanalyzing it and why do I think that, and is that true, and like all of those things, just kind of letting it like pass by and know that, like, that's not from me or God, and, like, that's helped. And then also just, like, practical things like getting outside and being in nature and eating well and all of those things that I'm not perfect at, but those all definitely factor into our mental health. And so kind of not making excuses for, like, why I can't do all those things, like why I can't be outside or eat better and all of that. Like, instead of making excuses for myself, just really trying to, like, do those things, because I have seen, like, just that practical, like, get outside instead of being inside all day, like, it does change things. So yeah,
It's good. Very good. Very practical concepts and things that we can implement right away, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell a mom or dad, a friend, or anyone, someone they love who struggles with fear and anxiety? What's helpful? What's not helpful for them?
It's not helpful to just tell them to get over it, because they can't get over it. And if they could get over it, they would, because they want to get over it more than you want them to get over it. But anxiety isn't just something that you can try hard enough to make it go away. I think also just it is helpful to maybe point them to someone that they trust. And for me, I've noticed that that's not always, like, a parent or a sibling, not because of any particular reason other than, like, sometimes when it's just someone outside of your day-to-day, it can feel easier to, for me at least, to, like, share or open up. And I think that's a personality thing. But yeah, point them to someone that's trusted, even if it's not, like, a counselor, but a pastor maybe, or a mentor or a friend. And then if you're walking with someone that has this, like, struggle with fear and anxiety, I would say you don't always have to, like, say something, because sometimes that makes it more chaotic and can add to, like, the chaos that's already happening in their brain, because it is chaos. So sometimes just even being present and, like, not saying anything, but just, like, being there, because I think a lot of the times it is amplified when you're alone, or feel like you're alone even if you're not. So yeah, I think just a gift of presence and practicing presence is helpful. So
That makes me think of when I went through my struggle at the very beginning. I was having these episodes, which was creating a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear.
Mhm.
And the doctors were pretty much telling us it was anxiety only. And Tyler was believing that. And I will never forget, I was sitting on my bed and I was having an episode, and the anxiety came like I don't even know.
Hurricane, right? Yeah.
Like a hurricane. And I was sitting there, and I remember him looking at me saying, "Calm down." And I just, in that moment, it just broke my heart, because it's like, I can't.
Yeah, if I could, I would.
Yes, and after a lot of counseling, he learned to be able to just sit with me, like you said. He just held my hand, so I knew I wasn't by myself. And that was just so helpful. So I can relate to that.
Yeah, I think the ministry of presence is something that we have to be really intentional about, and just it's so important.
Yeah, and we struggle so hard with it, because we feel this expectation to, like, know what to do or say.
Yeah, the right answer solves
Yeah,
the problem.
and that's really, you don't have the right answer, and so
And you can't solve it.
yes, so
It's usually from a good place. It's out of love.
Right.
Absolutely.
right, yeah, so just be there.
So, Karen, I believe there's someone listening right now who might be stuck in the same cycle you were stuck in, the cycle of trying harder, striving, living under the pressure to be perfect. What would you want to say to them?
I think practically take a break from social media, because I know for me in my life, when I have felt that tension to like get to the next place or achieve the next milestone in life, or my relationship with God isn't like whoever's comparison and all of that. It really is wrapped up a lot in comparison. So I would challenge you to just take a break from social media, and probably for longer than a day or two. Because I think we can get so caught up in the trap of a highlight reel of people's lives and what we perceive as others' reality when it's not reality. And then also remove the word striving from your vocabulary, because you can't work hard enough to achieve it, and it's not yours to achieve. And so just don't say the word strive, because the connotation with that is that you're the one doing the work, and that's just not true. The reality is it's Christ working in and through you. You just have to be willing to allow him to do it. And so just the concept of striving doesn't work. So I guess release the pressure to like try hard enough.
Even I was just convicted a little bit as you're saying that, like this whole idea of striving and trying. We're in doing that, we're really saying that his finished work on the cross is not enough.
Yes.
That we have to do more. And if we really believe that his finished work on the cross and his resurrection is enough, then we find that to be enough for us, and we don't have to strive for more. We don't have to do more. And I think that's an important thing for us to remember for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good stuff. And maybe there's someone listening who doesn't even realize that what they're doing is striving. It just feels like what they're supposed to do. What does freedom in Christ actually feel like for you?
I think it feels like really just allowing him to do the work within me, and to like take all of the pressure off for me to like perform for him. Because I think for a lot of my life I also felt like I had to like perform, if that makes sense, to like earn his acceptance or earn him to work in my life. And that's just not true. So just allow him the space to work and try to take your hands off and just be fully open to whatever it is he wants for you, because what he wants is way better than anything you could think that he wants. Because the thing that you think he wants probably doesn't even scratch the surface of the reality of what he wants to do in you and through you. So don't try to like understand it even. Just let him do the work and accept the things that he wants to take away and the things that he also wants to give to you as well.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
So before we wrap up, what's one truth that kind of is an anchor for you, something you hold on to when things feel shaky and unsteady, and the things that would cause some fear or anxiety? What's one simple truth that you hang on to?
Yeah, so I think that verse in 1 Thessalonians, it's 1 Thessalonians 5:23 and 24, and it says, "May the God of peace sanctify you entirely. May your spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. The one who has called you is faithful, and he will do it." Mm-hmm. And I think the last part of that passage is really the part that gives me hope, that the one that has called us is faithful and that he's going to be who does it. And so when I struggle with fear and anxiety and I can get caught back up in the wanting to do enough and be enough, I just remember that it's his finished work on the cross that does that for me and has redeemed me and restored me and is continuing to do those things. And so it really is him that does it and not me.
Hmm.
That's great. You've shared so many powerful truths. Your story is one that many of us can relate to. If our listeners only remember one thing you say today, what would you want them to remember from your story?
I think that God has not asked you to work hard enough to earn his love, that you could never work hard enough to earn it, that it was a gift that's been given to you. So accept that gift and then also share the gift with other people and love people well and love people who don't deserve it because you don't deserve it, but he loves you anyway. So yeah, just love well.
Carrington, thank you so much for being with us. Your story truly is a reminder that we don't have to earn God's love. We just have to receive it and live into it.
Yes, thank you. And friends, if that resonated with you, we want to encourage you to press into the Lord, to ask him to show you where you're striving and where you need to surrender. He's gentle and he's faithful. Make sure to share today's episode so that others can hear this message of restoration and freedom as well.
We'll be back next time with another powerful story. You'll hear a beautiful story of strength, surrender, and unshakable faith in the face of a life-altering diagnosis. A lifelong athlete and college softball player was thriving when her world shifted on December 6, 2023, the day she heard the word cancer. Through it all, she saw the hand of God and found his strength to be what sustained and held her. She came to see her suffering not as punishment, but as purpose, an opportunity to let God use her story to point others to him. Make sure to join us for this incredible story of God's goodness when life is not good.
Until then, remember, they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. There's power in your story. Don't be afraid to share it.
We truly are thankful to share this beautiful journey with you. And Carrington, we appreciate you sharing it with us. We pray that today you, our listeners, have been encouraged to stop striving and just surrender. Allow him to love you right where you are. We'll see you next time on the 1211 podcast.
Blessings, friends.